At age 45, I've been starting to think that my PR days are behind me. But I'm now 6 weeks into my latest training block, getting ready for the half marathon in Houston. Let's talk about how things are going. Yo, what's going on? KOFUZI here, coming to you on location from my backyard. Starting a new series here, and I thought we'd do something a little bit different, get away from the basement and my two different sets that I have down there. So I thought I'd do this outside. It is very cold, getting colder, and it just started snowing, so this may be a really bad idea. But first things first, I think I should clarify that the event that I am training for is at the Houston Marathon in January. There's also a half marathon that gets run at the same time. So that's the event that I am running. And this is an event that I ran before. I've actually run both the full and the half. I ran the full in 2020, and then I ran the half last year for a little bit of a PB, 1:25:07. It was long overdue to update that PB, but I was happy to notch that. But I did it in an annoying time because it's a 1:25:07. Had I run 8 seconds faster, I would be a 1:24 guy, and that sounds just so much faster than 1:25. I normally don't get too bothered with what my PBs are and managing little seconds like that, but when it's that close, it ends up being something that I've been thinking about for the entire year. Now, for that last build, I was pretty much self-coached and doing kind of the normal things that I normally do for a marathon because I don't really know how to train myself for a half marathon. I did have a little help from Sage giving me some pointers on some workouts ahead of that half, and that was really helpful. But this time I thought I would try using the Runna app. They are the sponsor for this series. So let's take a look at what the training has been like so far, and let's start with week 5.
Mondays and Wednesdays are usually session days, but week 5 was the week I would be in Austin for the running event, so I rearranged my training in the app so that I could have a rest day that coincided with my travel day. And then Tuesday was an easy run, and I was going to be running with Tommy Runs that morning. But to hit my mileage goal for the day, I needed to tack on a few miles beforehand, so I had to get up even earlier and run in the dark. But the miles went quickly, the sunrise was gorgeous, and then I was able to meet up with Tommy. Now, Tommy normally runs his easy runs faster than I do, but this was his first run since running the New York Marathon a couple weeks prior, so that was a bit of an equalizer, and we had a fantastic run that morning. The next day, Wednesday, was a session day, and it was a pretty big one at that. 10 times 800 with just 90 seconds of recovery. This is basically a Yasso 800, a workout that I typically do at the end of a marathon training block when I'm super fit. So I was a bit intimidated to find it here in the middle of a half marathon cycle.
Just wanna pack up my things and go. Just wanna be free, just wanna zone, just wanna flow, just wanna hang with the gang, but sometimes chill on my own.
The good news was that I was able to run in a secret prototype racing shoe from one of the shoe brands I was in town for the running event. The bad news is that I can't show it to you or tell you about it. But I can say I think that the shoe was really good, and I averaged 3 minutes per 800 meter repetition, which means that the last 5 weeks of a Runna has put me in the equivalent of 3-hour marathon fitness. And with how much I'd been struggling with running and work travel over the last year, I really never thought I'd be able to say I was near sub-3 marathon fitness again.
You know when the calling's calling.
Thursday was supposed to be an easy 5.5 miles, but at the last minute, I was invited to help promote the ASICS Torchy's Taco Run. So I went to that event with Drew Whitcomb, and it was a really good turnout. A lot of friends were there, but the run was a bit short in terms of what I needed for the day at about 3 miles. So I thought about adding a couple miles to fulfill my quota, but the running event is always exhausting, so I left good enough alone. And then on Friday, I was supposed to run an easy 6, but this would end up being the first running session that I skipped with this Runna training block. The night before was the running event after party, which is typically a very fun but very long night. Saturday, I was back at home and back at it with an 11-mile easy run. And I feel like I still had no voice after being at TRE all week, and I felt like I was on the verge of coming down with something, but at least my legs felt good and I enjoyed the run. And then on Sunday, to wind up the week, I had my long run workout. Now, this was supposed to be a race simulator based on the paces that Runna thinks that I can race a half marathon at right now. And Yaso 800s aside, Runna thinks that I am in 6:40 per mile half marathon shape.
Here we go once again.
One thing to keep in mind is that Runna started over in UK and Europe. So I think the training plans are written in kilometers and then converted over to miles. So a lot of times warm-ups will be 0.6 or 1.2 miles long or 1 to 2 kilometers. And today's workout was 3.7 miles or 6K at 6:40 per mile, and then 3.1 miles or 5K at 6:40 per mile. And then there was an easy 2.5 miles or 4K each for warm-up, recovery, and cool down for a total of about 14 miles. I was expecting to struggle, and it was certainly hard, but I was able to hit the paces. And for these longer intervals, I've been really focusing on keeping my foot on the gas even when I start to feel tired or panicked. And I've been trying to remind myself that I can keep holding on to the effort and the pace and just trust that I will still have more left in the tank to finish out the rest of the rep. In a way, it's been a leap of faith. So when I finished this run with the work intervals at faster than goal pace, and after the successful Yaso 800s earlier in the week, I was starting to believe that this Runna app was actually getting me into a level of really good fitness.
Better check for pose. You better check for pose.
The next week was the week of Thanksgiving, and because of how I rearranged last week, I had to do a little bit of rearranging for this week. Also, I wanted to do a turkey trot with my daughter, so that had to factor into the rescheduling as well. So Monday, which is normally a session day, was just an easy 7 miles. And I can't show you any footage of my shoes on this day either because I am wear testing a different pair of shoes, and there's an NDA. I don't normally like to run in shoes that aren't at least almost nearly production ready. I'm only one person on this channel, and I can only run so many miles in a year, so I like to kind of save my miles for shoes that I'm actually going to review. So I don't know why I agreed to do this wear testing. Tuesday, we were at my in-laws in Iowa for Thanksgiving, and the workout was K200s. Run a kilometer at 6:10 per mile, and then tack on an additional 200 at 5:30 per mile. So basically it was a 1,200 meter repeats with a fast and then even faster pace in there. The rest was just 90 seconds and then repeat for a total of 8 reps. This workout was really tough. I brought the On Cloud Broom Strike light spray as I enjoy that shoe for very fast work, but even those shoes couldn't help me hit these paces. I would consider 6:10 per mile to be in between 5K and 10K pace for me right now. And then having to speed up after a kilometer of that into a 200 meter rep at essentially mile race pace was so hard. And so just when I thought I was getting the hang of the Runna system, it felt like the rug was getting pulled out from under me again. Now, back when I started this Runna plan, it let me select which race I was preparing for. It asked me what my level of experience was. I don't consider myself elite, but it's what I chose based on Runna's definitions. And it asked me for a recent race result. I had just run Berlin Marathon about a month prior. It asked me how many days per week I like to run. Every day, please. And it asked me what my long runs were like right now. And from there, it gave me a 13-week training plan. It was 13 weeks until the half marathon at Houston at the time. And from day one, the Runna workouts have been very tough. Even the first day of the plan, week 1, day 1, was humbling. It was a long tempo with paces that didn't seem all that intimidating on paper. But I felt like I had to give a race level all out effort on that day, and I still didn't hit the paces. And it didn't get easier.
So eventually at week 4, Runna did make an adjustment. I got a notification in the app, and after accepting the request for changes, it adjusted all my session paces. And once it did that, everything was suddenly much more manageable. So much so that I thought that maybe the app had overcorrected, but that K200s workout definitely put me back in my place. This Runna app was not going to coddle me.
Wednesday was an easy run in the More version 5. I had been so looking forward to running in a big, mushy max cushion shoe after the K200s, but the More version 5 didn't exactly deliver on what I was hoping for. Now, it was exceptionally cold on that day, so I tried to keep that in mind as I was collecting my thoughts on this shoe, but this run wasn't as recoverful as I was hoping it would have been. Now, Thursday was supposed to be an interval session, but it was also Thanksgiving morning. There was a turkey trot somewhat nearby that my daughter wanted to try. The event is a very hilly 2.5 mile loop, and my daughter decided she would race the 1 lap loop while I raced the 2. They give out turkeys as a prize to the winner of each age group, and based on prior year's results, it looked like my daughter and I each had a very small but non-zero chance of winning. The temps were super cold. It was the coldest my daughter has ever run in, and we lined up a little bit off the starting line as there were a lot of young, fast runners at this event. My goal was to make sure that she got out of the chute safely before I took off, but after about half a mile, I could still hear my daughter breathing heavily behind me at about 6:10 pace. And this was a bit too fast for each of us, so I told her to slow down right as we took the first giant downhill. Now, I have really no idea how to pace a 5 mile race, and I especially don't know how to pace a 5 mile race with this kind of elevation change in it, but I just went with the flow and I ended up with a 6-minute first mile. The second mile was all uphill, but at least it was gradual, and then we hit the really big hill. It was over 100 feet of gain in about 1/3 of a mile, and I heavily debated power hiking. My arms were numb, frozen, and burning at the same time. Then we finally hit the crest and rolled down to the starting line to end lap 1. And for the second lap, I was now able to see who I was actually racing against. There were a couple of guys around me my age and mostly children, and I took the big downhill a bit easier this time. Then on the uphill second mile, I pushed a bit harder than I did the first time. And on the last giant uphill, I saw a guy about my age and started to track him down. I managed to pass him as we crested the top and yelled at him to come with me to the finish, but he wasn't able to keep up, and I crossed the line. Instantly, I felt like I had paced myself incorrectly because I was tired at the finish, but not race tired. Does that make sense? And then when I found my daughter, we looked up the results. She had come in 3rd in her age group, and I came in 2nd. There was another guy, a guy I didn't see, who finished about 30 seconds ahead of me. But even though we didn't win any turkeys, we had fun. Some people even recognized me at the event, which is not something I typically experience when I go to Iowa. But no one asked me if I could run fast in my shoes, so that was a bummer. Friday, my father-in-law needed to bring his truck in to Uncle David, who is a mechanic a couple towns over. It was super cold, so I offered to take the truck in for my father-in-law, and I went for a run while I waited for the truck to get serviced. It was a nice, easy run, but it was so cold. I've technically run in colder conditions before, but I didn't pack clothes for this level of cold. It was 16 degrees Fahrenheit with a feels like temp of 0. That's about negative 17 degrees Celsius. My face froze. Conditions would not improve much for the following day. In fact, it was pretty much the same, except now it was windy, and also I had to do a workout. Today's long run was 7.5 miles easy and then 7.5 miles at 7:20 pace. My face got so cold running into the headwind that I decided to break up the easy and start the work portion of the long run early into the headwind for a bit before I turned around. This was one of those runs where I worry that my Apple Watch is going to die from the cold, and it did, and I wouldn't have a way to call my wife to come pick me up if I needed help. But fortunately, running a couple miles hard into the headwind warmed me up a little, and then I was able to turn around and warm up a little bit more. The wind wasn't biting at my face anymore, and I was able to finish the workout. Again, the paces didn't seem all that intimidating on paper, but this workout was hard. But at least today, I was able to hit the paces. The next morning, we were back in Illinois, and the temps weren't much different. I had 12 easy miles to run, so I headed over to Bussey Woods. Each loop of the park is a bit more than 7 miles, so I ran about 1.5 laps. Bussey Woods is typically a very windy place, even on days when it's not even windy. But luckily, today, this was one of those rare days when the winds weren't all that bad.
So that brings us up to date on the last 6 weeks with the Runna app. I really didn't think that this training plan would be so difficult. I don't know why, but I just thought that it would be easier. Yet, despite all the challenges that this training plan has thrown my way, I've been able to, so far, stay healthy, and I feel like I'm getting really fit. Hit the subscribe button so you can get updates for the next installment of this series after week 8, where I'm gonna talk about strength training, mobility work, and deload weeks. And if you wanna try running for yourself, you can use the code KOFUZI in the app. I don't get paid any extra if you do or don't, but it's there if you want it.